The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi again, and welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh, everyone. I'm Cheryl Hentz, along with former Oshkosh Mayor and City Councilwoman Melanie Bloechl. On Tuesday, April 6th, voters will be going to the polls. We'll be voting for a variety of positions in the county for county board supervisors. All 38 seats are up for re-election. We'll also be electing new city council members, as well as new school board members, a couple of judges, and of course the couple of referendums actually for the ban on smoking in city restaurants in the city of Oshkosh. Two county board seats, I believe it's two, are being challenged this time around, and one of them is in a district that represents a portion of the city of Oshkosh. We are very pleased this evening to welcome Kathleen Lennon, or Kathy as she said she prefers to be called. She is challenging Mark Madison for the seat that represents District 15. And Kathy, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Why don't we just start, as we do with all candidates for public office, why don't you tell us, please, a little bit about yourself and why you're seeking a seat on the county board?
Oh, I've been a realtor in the immediate community for almost 20 years, since 1986. I specialize in waterfront, our wonderful waterfront in the city of Oshkosh and surrounding areas and historic properties. I get a kick out of. I still love what I do for a living, which is nice. It helps when you're. I made a promise to myself when the trajectory of my life changed in February 1st of 1999, and I made a promise to myself that I would share my experience, strength, and hope with something every day. And I feel that I help Father Carr. That's a community thing, but I wanted to be more, just more active in my immediate community. Unlike a lot of the districts, my district, it doesn't lie north, south, east, or west. So how I describe it to people, I said, it's the tree streets. And that explains it, because it's not directly involved with the college or the lake or the river. It's sort of lying in the middle of Oshkosh, and it really doesn't have a name for it. But I love my neighborhood. And as I was going through a lot of pain in February of 1999, I looked outside, and these were some of the neighbors I knew, some of the neighbors I didn't. I looked outside, and my snow was always shoveled, because I knew I was alone. In the summer, my lawn was always mowed, and I still have never caught whoever did that for me. And I'll never forget that. Those are life-changing experiences. And I just wanted to give back, and that's my immediate community, that I can do that. Mm-hmm. I'm a developer here in town, and I'm having a little bit of a challenge on one of my projects, but today. But we'll get over that. We'll get through that. A bump in the road. No pun intended. Huge bump.
And now you said that your district is the tree streets.
Yeah.
What district? What areas does your district actually cover?
It goes from Woodland to Elmwood, then Algoma, Murdoch, and Wisconsin. So all of those wonderful tree streets that are in there, that it's the spruce, Elmwood, obviously Woodland, Cedar, Beech is in there. That's the tree streets, and people know exactly where that is when you try to describe your district.
Now, I don't want to get too personal or get into something that's uncomfortable for you. You've mentioned February 1999 a couple of times. Do you want to allude what happened, or would you rather just forget that?
No, I can tell. It's just people that know me, which most people do. I had a little boy that was 6 years old and a husband that I had just divorced, just gone through a divorce with that got killed in a snowmobile accident in front of the Pioneer, and that trajectory of my life. And really, you need to understand that I need to talk about that because that's what everybody says. Otherwise, I go Lulu.
Sure. Well, I didn't want to put you on the spot with it, but
No.
you had mentioned it, and I didn't.
That's fine.
I wanted to give you an opportunity to delve into that if you
Yeah.
wanted. Go ahead, Mel.
Kathy, when you decide to do something like this, it's not a small thing. I mean, you think about it, you think, do I, don't I, is this where I can best use my talents? And it's obvious that you've spent a lot of time probably thinking about this before you jump into the county board, especially with some of the press that the county board gets on a regular basis. It's not the most popular press around. What are the issues? What made you decide, or what are there pressing issues besides the fact that you want to share, doing something positive? Are there issues that brought you to the forefront and you said, you know what, that really has to change? These are things that I'm really personally concerned about or professionally concerned about that you feel as though you need your attention or need new set of eyes to take a look at?
I think it's a lot of that, and that's pretty powerful what you said. But I think it's a lot of that, and there's not one issue. No, but I think I can learn something, and I think my community can always teach me something. My immediate community, because I don't think I would really, and I do take this seriously. Thank you for saying that, because I do. I just think I can learn something, and I want to know both sides of the issues. I see snippets, a person like myself, I see snippets in the Daily Northwestern that make me come off my chair sometimes, and I see wonderful things, that I see progress, and I just want to be part of it, and I want to go through the learning experience of seeing the entire picture. I went through the budget the other day, and it looks so much like my subdivision numbers that I got sick of it. I had to shut it, but I want the whole picture, and I want to learn from that.
So you really feel as though this isn't just what you can give to your immediate community, but really a learning process for you to understand.
Correct.
Your form of local government is pretty much what you're trying to say, is that,
That's exactly.
that you can get something from it, not just give to it as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have any specific issues with the way Mr. Madison has been performing his duties in District 15?
No, I don't. He's got the Parkview. He's on the board of the Parkview. I noticed
Health Center, yes.
Health Center. Thank you. And they've got sort of a hot topic right now,
Very much
as
so.
far as is that's concerned. And I really respect anyone that's on those committees. That's a lot of extra work, and they really dive into those issues, and just like a jury that knows so much less than I do, I can't judge, what somebody else in a closed quorum, let's say, how they vote or what they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to be in. I would like to get more of a feeling of that
Sure.
before I'd ever, like I said, and those are just sort of hot topics right now.
Right. Well, you had mentioned Parkview Health Center. Of course, Mr. Madison is on that that committee. Parkview has been in the news, Mel, for probably about the last 9 or 10 months, really hot and heavily. What do you think about what should be done out there? I mean, obviously we have to maintain it in some shape, form, or fashion. Does Kathy Lennon have some thoughts as to what the future of Parkview Health Center should be?
No, I don't, because I need to educate myself more before I would make any type of decision like that. And what's a better way to educate yourself than really getting the whole picture?
Initiation by fire, Kathy, is
Yes,
what you're saying?
exactly.
Yes. That will do it.
My family is from Oshkosh and has been for 150 years. And as a matter of fact, my grandpa Gibson sold horse and buggies here. You know, my father was a grocer. That side of the family were grocers. But I was campaigning for my brother Bill last summer, and we spent almost all summer in Neenah, Menasha, and I thought to myself, how did I miss this? How did I miss this northern part of my county? I was a little bit ashamed of myself. And because they have tree streets too, I thought, oh my God, tree streets. You know, and I need that bigger picture, and I need to know, and I need to pay attention to what's up north. They were wonderful, wonderful people I met because I went door to door. We did it the hard way, and my whole family did. And so those are the type of big pictures I need to see more of, because I was a little disappointed myself because my gosh, I was a flight attendant when I was 19 years old. I was flying all over the world, and I really got the big picture of the world. Why couldn't I have looked at my county? That's sort of silly, but
Sure.
you know.
Well, if I could just ask one more question real quickly.
Sure.
You had brought up about your brother Bill. Of course, he's currently our district attorney here in Winnebago County. It's a fair question, I think. Do you feel that you are trying to capitalize on his name right now, or is this something that Kathy Lennon is doing for Kathy Lennon, irrespective of Bill Lennon?
I think in myself, in Kathy Lennon, in myself, I think we all try to capitalize on our own names. Obviously, we're different, and we have different schooling and different educations and things, but that would be nice if they would respect my brother Bill, and they would, or if they knew the Gibsons and ever bought a car from Grandpa Gibson. I mean, I'm always capitalizing because we've been here for so long. I'm a realtor also. I've got 250 people that are my direct competition, and every day. I've got a job interview probably about twice a week. Sometimes I'm up against somebody, sometimes I'm not. So if I do, that's okay. But I would like to think that I'm my own self.
Okay.
But there's a lot of entities that go around that.
Well, I think when you have a name like Lennon, because it is an old name in town, it's kind of hard to separate those things. You know, you're going to be Bill Sr.'s daughter, you're going to be Bill Jr.'s sister, you're going to be Grandpa Gibson's granddaughter. It's tough, and with that, while there's some positives, there can be negatives too. Because, you know, we all bring our friends and foes to the table, and I've been there, done that. Kathy, one of the things that is difficult when you're a novice at this and you're coming out of it and you're green, you know, you're coming into this, you've admitted that there's a lot that you have to learn, and that, to me, that's the first step in anyone being successful, is coming with an open mind and no preconceived notions on how things should or shouldn't be because they've listened to the rumor mill long enough. You're going to go in and do your homework. Do you think the county board is just a huge conglomerate of committees and responsibilities? I mean, it's got a lot of things under its umbrella that I think the average person in the community doesn't necessarily understand what the county board is all responsible for. Do you think that the learning curve for you will be difficult? I mean, how long do you think it will take you watching new people, kind of getting your feet wet in this and listening to people now where you've kind of thrown your hat into the ring? How long do you think that learning curve will be? Because you've got huge budgets, you've got huge deficits that you're going to be facing. You know, there's a lot of issues out there. The rebuild potentially of Parkview, the airport, you know, there's a lot on the table, and those are just the things that are the hot button items. Do you think that learning curve is going to be an enormous one, or?
No, because of my life experience, I've had wonderful. I've had 2 jobs. I was a flight attendant. You know, for 10 years. I flew all around the world. I know a lot about airports. I've been to most every airport, you know, in the world, especially in the United States. But just land use. I've built roads. I've had a lot of life experience. I've been so fortunate in my life. So that I bring to the table. Okay. The learning curve is probably the other things, because there is like you said, a large diversity of things I don't know. But there's a lot of things in my life experience that I do know.
Do you have special interest, Kathy? Because there's so many committees, that committee structure within the county board that's kind of unique to the county board. City councils have advisory boards, but it's not run by committee.
Correct.
It's strictly advisory. Do you have special interests? Are there certain committees that you would like to see yourself on that you think you could be excited about?
For one, the airport, because the airport interests me. I know a little bit about marketing, and I know a little bit about how airports run, how they make their money, how they lose their money, that type of thing. That board interests me.
Okay.
For now. And something else might pique my interest, whether I want to get involved with it or not. But for now, I think that's safe for me to say.
One of the things that's also been rather contentious is the relationship between our state legislators, county board supervisors, and even city council members. There seems to be a disconnect with the state legislators in getting information and disseminating it to the people at the county board level as far as where the state money is going to come from to pay for programs that the county has to provide. Just kind of everyday things that the county board definitely needs to know in order to put together a good budget, good programming. Do you have any feelings about the state legislators and what your expectations will be as far as communication with them during your learning curve process?
Well, in my district, the author of 606, about the county board, decreasing the county board size, the author of 606, I believe, is in my district.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, Greg Underheim is in my district.
Kathy, I don't mean to interrupt. We should probably explain for the viewers what 606 is in case they're unaware of it.
It's a bill that that Greg Underheim has written, and it is. Now help me out if I get this wrong, because
No, it's not a trick question, I
because
swear.
this is the Daily Northwestern that I'm quoting.
Well, there's a mistake.
Definitely do more research before you do it. No, I'm kidding. Sorry. That was.
But
just a cheap
it really
smack.
looks at it really looks at the county board and decreasing the size of the county board.
Okay.
And the pros and cons of doing that. So I'm real good at what I do, and I like what I do. And a lot of people don't know that a realtor and a good realtor, what I do is I negotiate. If I ever told my buyers and sellers what they said about each other, whew, I would never sell another piece of real estate. And that's really what I'm good at. And I like doing it too. And it's stressful. Sometimes it's real stressful. And I'm sure that some of the issues, and especially the hot issues, and people get emotional. As much as you try not to, they do. That's going to be, it's going to be tough. And there's going to be some negotiations that I'm not going to like.
Do you think that you will be able to inspire state representatives by virtue of your longevity in the community and the fact that one of the representatives is actually within your district to share information with the county board as a whole? Because I think that's where the problem is that there is not enough information coming from the state to the county, and that's where you get this bad blood coming from, is that at budget time you're not sure where your revenue is going to come from. You don't know if they're going to cut back on funding for the elderly or the handicapped. And then before you know it, your budget is here, and then the state sends their revenue, and then you're adjusting your budgets as you go, and doing the work on the fly. That is not the kind of by the seat of your pants kind of work that you want to do, especially when you're directly responsible to the taxpayers. My question is, do you think that by virtue of your ability to negotiate in your everyday work, do you think that you will be able to convince state legislators how important it is to have better senses of communication with county board supervisors? Or do you even think that that's a problem presently? I guess maybe that's the better question.
If you brought that up, I'll bet you it is. And that's me not even really realizing the magnitude of Nina Menasha.
Okay.
Shame on me. that probably is a problem, because I've seen that. I've seen, well, you know, the county board member and somebody rolling their eyes. Well, you know what? You don't do that.
Yeah.
And I could only, answering your question, I could only hope.
Okay.
I could only hope I could influence that.
Great.
Well, you mentioned about, you know, Mr. Underheim's wanting to see the size of the county board reduced. Where does your feeling on that lie? Do you think it's too big, or do you think it's the right size, or should it be bigger, God forbid?
I've seen.
We now know Cheryl's feeling on the county board size.
How do you really feel now? Answer my question. I don't know. The jury's not in my head with that. I need to, and once again, I get snippets from the Daily Northwestern, and I see partial parts of the county board meetings and things like that. I need to see some real good arguments for, and some real good arguments. And if I get this, if the voters hire me for this job, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm interviewing for a job, then I'll see those real good arguments for and against, and then I can make up my mind.
I think, you know, with all due respect, I think that a lot of good arguments on both sides have been made. I mean, this has been batted around for at least 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer than that. I think one of the strongest arguments probably for a smaller size board would be, what I've heard is that, you know, they feel that if you had a smaller board, you'd probably have more people running for office and less uncontested seats. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's true. I definitely think that's true. And we're still, our county board is still intact, and if I'm remembering that the county board was like 41 seats at one point in my lifetime anyway.
Oh, we've made a little progress.
Yeah, and it's been a long life. It's getting longer by the minute.
What do you see as major issues facing the county in the next 2 to 5 years?
I think your shared revenue. I think we're going through a cycle. It has nothing to, and I personally think it has nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats, but we're going through, and real estate goes in that cycle, and you can't help, and when you're in that magic roller coaster ride, as the president has been, as the state of Wisconsin has been, and you're out of money, and you're not getting the revenues you were expecting. Real estate is like that. The stock market is like that, and we just have to hang on through it. We're still here, you know, and we'll still, you know, we're still intact. But it's those rough rides. You know, the 90s were wonderful. You know, I mean, the stock market, everything was doing wonderful, and it really had nothing to do. It was just the cycle. It was just the normal cycle that happens in life.
Yeah, everything is cyclical. You know, even bell bottoms and platform shoes are coming back. So
Hip huggers are too, and guess what? Those don't work anymore.
Everything is cyclical. Other than the shared revenue reduction, what other issues do you see facing the county?
I don't know. I guess I didn't think that far.
Okay.
Kathy, if you had to define yourself, you've defined yourself by what you do as far as realtor. You've been a stewardess. You've been a developer and still are. And you've been successful in all of those. But if you had to define yourself in a way that voters may look at you, in terms of conservative versus liberal, Republican versus Democrat, independent, how would you fall in those categories? How would you define yourself?
Oh, I'm a conservative. I'll always try to fix something instead of buy new. I'll always try. And that just comes from being who I am and from a big Irish family.
Mine came from being poor.
Yeah. I guess that's maybe what I was saying on the back end of that. But my best thing in my life, and one thing I'm very, very proud of, I'm the most tenacious person you're ever gonna find. I should have, this subdivision I'm putting together, I started 12 years ago. So, and it's just coming to, it's just coming to be right now.
It's kind of
which
like
is
a
really-
fine wine.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Real fine wine, a real expensive fine wine.
Kathy, Melanie kind of alluded to this, earlier on in the interview, but I think one of the problems with the county board is that the perception of the county board is that most people don't really understand exactly what it does, how it impacts their lives. And maybe that explains, I don't know, but maybe that's at least the explanation for a small part of the apathy that we see, why there are so many uncontested county board seats, people not really paying attention to the county board meetings, that kind of thing. If you're elected, or as you say, hired to represent the people in District 15, do you feel that you should be doing anything to try and educate them? And if so, what will you do?
Be available. I want to be available so they can ask me, and if I don't know the answer, I'll find out. Remember, I'm tenacious.
We got that.
So, yeah. So and that's one thing I want to do. I want to, I've got, retired circuit court judges and psychiatrists and college students. I own a property with 6 college students in it, in my district. There's 6 votes. So we have such a huge diversity of wonderful, wonderful people. And I would be honored if they would call me and say, I really feel like you should vote for this. I want to be available to them. I want them to know that they can call me, and they can call me at home.
But I think most times they don't. There's people that I know that don't even know who their county board supervisor is.
Yes.
So they may
That's a
not
problem.
call. And we've only got about a minute left before I'm going to ask you to tell voters why they should vote for you. But will you seek people out and talk to them in your district about the county board and what it does?
I already had started to do that. When I got signatures, I don't do anything halfway. Remember, I'm tenacious. I knocked on doors, and I didn't go in the safe part of my neighborhood. I went to a part of my neighborhood that I didn't know. I didn't know anyone, and I talked to them, and I told them what I was going to do.
Okay.
And that I'm approachable, and I would like to be known as being approachable, and that they can talk to me.
Okay. Well, in the about 45 seconds that we have left, why don't you look into camera number 3 straight ahead of you there and tell the people, especially the voters in District 15, why they should vote for you on Tuesday, April 6th.
If you live in District 15, which is the Tree Streets, I lovingly call it that, please vote for me, Kathleen Lennon, April 6th, once again. Thank you.
Okay. Did you want to give them any reason why, or other than that you're tenacious?
I'll work real hard for you. It'll be a learning curve for all of us, and I want to be available to you so you can ask questions and feel comfortable with me.
Okay. And you have a phone number also if people want to get a hold of you.
Yes.
What is that number?
It's 232-2121.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it, and good luck on Tuesday, April 6th. We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by the incumbent in District 15, Mr. Mark Madison. We'll be right back.
Good evening. Follow me, please.
Imagine what America would be like today if Martin Luther King never had a dream. Help keep the dream alive. To find out more about the Martin Luther King Memorial in Washington, D.C., call or log on now.
Oshkosh Community Access TV2 is your local sports channel. Follow your favorite Oshkosh teams each week as CATV2 presents the high school game of the week. Besides football and basketball, we feature soccer, gymnastics, swimming, wrestling, and volleyball. Sundays at 8, Mondays at noon, and Wednesdays at 8, CATV2 is the place to be for high school sports. The high school game of the week, here on Oshkosh Community Access TV2.
I want to
Have an impact.
make a difference.
I want my voice to be heard.
Take matters into your own hands. Smack down your vote for the candidates who represent you and the issues you care about. Make time on Election Day to vote in elections in your community.
Have an impact.
Make a difference.
Let your voice be heard.
To learn more about the candidates where you live, contact the League in your state or community through lwv.org.
Smack down your vote on Election Day.
The Friends of OCAT is a nonprofit group that supports Oshkosh Community Access Television programming and facilities. The Friends sponsor membership, underwriting, and fundraising projects. Their mission is to provide quality programming, to plan and implement fundraising activities, to develop a supportive membership, and to raise awareness of OCAT. If you would like to become a member and support Oshkosh Community Access Television, buy an OCAT card and enjoy discounts at many local businesses. Thanks for viewing OCAT.
Hi again, and welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. We were just interviewing Kathleen Lennon, who is challenging Mr. Mark Madison for District 15 in Winnebago County. We are now joined by Mr. Mark Madison himself, the current supervisor in District 15.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Mark, you've been on the county board for about 4 years, but I'm sure a lot of folks don't know who you are or what you're all about. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're seeking re-election?
Well, thank you. I was actually appointed to the board 4 years ago. The circumstances were such that Mr. Montgomery, who had served on the board for 10 years, I believe it was, or so, and served well as far as I understood, became employed by the county and could no longer serve on the board as well as be an employee just per policy and thing. But nevertheless, his name still appeared on the ballot. It was a timing issue, just what it was. But I knew of the circumstances when I went to vote that morning, and I was somewhat befuddled to see there his name still was. And it was one of the rare times I thought, well, you know what, I'm just going to write my own name in here, which I did. And I relayed the message to an acquaintance of mine who happened to be on the board. And he said, well, you know what, that's a good idea. You ought to submit a resume. I said, a resume? What are you talking about? And so I did that, and lo and behold, the next thing I knew, I was appointed to fill that position. That was 4 years ago, and then 2 years ago, I ran unopposed. And I just might want to add, coincidentally, or maybe ironically, that it's an honor to be here today, and it's an honor that that Kathleen Lennon is running, because with an opponent, it's the first time I've had an opportunity to speak in a forum like this. A colleague and friend of mine, also on the board now, he got on 2 years ago, Supervisor Jacobson, made the comment to me. I hadn't really stopped to think about it myself, and I give him credit for it, commented how, you know, Mark, when you're unopposed, no one wants to interview you. No one wants to hear what you're all about. And, you know, somewhere along here, I'd like to throw in my 2 cents or motivation about citizen participation and a desire to see participation by all citizens, the more the better. And I just find it kind of ironic, and I'm just saying this in, I hope, a constructive fashion, that if there were time and availability, I would think citizens would be interested in hearing from all participants in government, whether or not they're opposed or not. You'd still want a quality individual and know where they stand. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's a time frame or whatever it is, and it certainly isn't just you folks as media, but media generally, it is kind of curious that we don't have much interest in hearing about people's views if they're unopposed. I just thought it was kind of interesting. And
well, there's no
maybe
cat fights, Mark. I mean, what fun is that?
Yeah, well,
You're
there
not
isn't
clawing
really
each
that
other's
much
out?
of a cat fight here either, so we have to create some controversy.
Well, you come to the right place.
All right, let's go.
We've got controversy all the time. If you
And if there isn't any, we'll create
That's
some.
the most fun. Yeah, start some rumors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself to be fiscally responsible? And if so, can you cite some recent examples of how you've demonstrated that?
I think the best example in my own mind would be the courthouse security expansion that was brought up.
That sounds like exasperation in your voice.
Well, I'm exasperated trying to remember. Was that 2 years ago now? I'm not sure the time frame, but
You mean the first time it was brought up, the $635,000?
I was going to say $600,000. Thank you. And
yeah, it was.
When I looked at the materials at home, and there was a rather clearly itemized list of what the construction was all going to be about, over $400,000 was for adding this foyer, if you will. I believe the plan was so that, well, it was a considerate plan. People wouldn't have to wait outside in the weather to go through a security check, but there would be kind of this line, like an airport line, to go through a security check. But nevertheless, you had, in the name of security, $400-some thousand was in the building, and I don't know, it was rumors, like, do we need a new courthouse someday, or how long are we even going to be in this courthouse? And it didn't seem quite prudent, fiscally responsible to say, let's add another $400,000 addition to the courthouse. I mean, the security was a great idea. It seemed it's nice to have more security, you want people safe. But the way it fleshed out then in the discussion, I personally couldn't support that $400,000 addition. And I thought, and I think it has turned out to be true, that there were other ways of improving the safety of the employees and citizenry using that courthouse without having to have that foyer.
But there is a, Tom Peck was on the show last year, and of course this issue kind of keeps coming up again and again and again. There is kind of a long-range plan to spend millions of dollars in security in the courthouse, is there not?
I don't know about the millions of dollars.
I thought it was something like $10 million over 12 years, or $12 million over 10 years.
That was speculative. I don't know that they actually built that into the budget. I know that was
no,
something
it wasn't
that they
built
were
in the budget. It was just something that has continued to be talked about, and I guess they're approving it kind of piecemeal.
Well, yeah, and that kind of concerned me, and does. But I think the beauty of it is, as far as being able to supervise it and kind of watchdog it, is that it is more or less a budget by budget. And if and when at any one point in time it seems like certain parts of it or the next step of it is overboard or unnecessary, the board would still have an opportunity to stop it. And in that list of improvements for the security, there is no foyer. So at least the interested parties are not going back to that particular notion.
So it's not something that's being done where, say, in 2006 you approve one certain part and a plan for 2007 is contingent upon something earlier.
No, I don't think they're all connected that way.
Okay, all right.
Maybe in a perfect world or something, but I think at any one point in time you could stop the process in tight budgetary times, such as we could be facing here this next year.
Again.
Well, I think most serious ones are coming up. That's one of the reasons why I did want to run for the board this time. I've enjoyed my 4 years, and nevertheless, I think potentially with the shared revenue and all, we could have some really tough choices about services offered by the county and where to make cuts. And I thought, well, I think I want to stick around on the board long enough to be held accountable and responsible for making some of those decisions. And I like to think of myself as having excellent problem-solving skills. I think that's a key issue if you're going to be in public office or do anything, really, is to be able to identify the problem before you start trying to just throw money or wild ideas at it. And I like to consider myself a sociologist, or at least it was a senior year sociology class that got my first attention in high school. And I've been working as a social worker for forever. But within that framework has always been problem solving with families and kids or whatever kinds of issues are going on. And my interest in politics, I think, goes back to high school as well. And one of the things with the county board that I'd like to comment on as far as citizen participation, because I think that's what it's all about, I think, in our country, is having people participate. And, you know, I can think back to high school when I first started hearing the figures about the lack of people that actually go out and vote. I remember the first couple of months of being on the county board and having the opportunity to vote on various issues. I found it quite exhilarating to have this opportunity. I love to vote. Yeah, a lot of times people I vote for don't win, and that's a certain frustration. But I get a kick out of being.
Would you like to list who those were?
No. But I do enjoy getting over to my polling place. I'm a morning person, and once I was actually number 1, but I'm usually in the top 5, and I just kind of gives me a little extra spring in my step starting my day, knowing that I voted, and I just find it a real honor. And one of the main features and foundations of being in our country. And what makes this country so great is the opportunity to vote. And yet, when I look back over the course of my life and how long ago I first heard about voter apathy, it saddens me today to realize, I just heard so-called experts saying there will be 100 million Americans that will not vote this next presidential election. They will not even bother to go out. And I think that's why I'm in politics today. I mean, not the only reason. There's the issues on board, but I always like to have an eye on what could we do to engage more people. I really don't think people are disinterested, but I do think there's apathy, and you wonder what that's all about. I'm not saying I have all the answers as to what it's about, but I think the quest to discover and bring in more people and make our country more connected with things going on in government. Now, I did overhear your interview with Miss Lennon, and I heard you mention the county board size and whether or not lowering the number of seats would be appropriate, therefore drawing in more contestants to run for office. And you know, for 3 or 4 years now, I've been paying attention to the Milwaukee paper, and I brought this little article in, and I saved it for the last month or so, because the last 3 or 4 years in the Milwaukee area anyway, and I think it's germane to the whole state and probably the country, this is the 4th year in a row the Milwaukee Journal paper has done an analysis that shows the vast majority of elections this spring, about 59%, are uncontested in 4 southeastern communities that the paper polls every year. So there's a lack of contested elected positions statewide. It isn't just the county board. I think there's a certain, in all due respects to people that want to continually bring this up, I think there's a certain flaw in the logic. I mean, should we reduce the number of elected positions statewide in order to try to create more people running? I don't really think that's the answer. I don't think that's the problem. We go back to the problem is the voter apathy. How come people aren't coming out? I would never sit here and say I have some magic number or scientific proof to say 38 people on a county board is the answer. But you know, I honestly don't believe that people at CHB any different size have any proof whatsoever to say what size it should be or why it would really be any smaller. And again, my theme or platform, if you will, about voter and citizen participation in government, I really embrace the size of the county board from that standpoint. Is true, I was appointed. Does that make me any less of a serious, respectable, and thoughtful participant in the government? I don't really think it does. I think you could be appointed. You could pick your favorite politician of all time, whoever that might be, fill in the blank. It's just rhetorical. And if that individual was appointed to the county board, would you be disappointed to have your favorite politician of all time appointed? They could still do an excellent job. So just being appointed doesn't mean you have an ineffective individual on the board. And just to follow up my thought about the size of the board, well, the part I embrace about it, I think is so excellent, is the availability to participate. I mean, sure, it'd be nice to have contested races in each and every one, but on the other hand, if you are interested as a citizen in becoming involved in government, it's pretty easy. The potential is higher to get into the county board. Just as you're saying with Ms. Lennon, there's lots of opportunities in your district to get in and find out what's going on. And I think that's a real advantage to the size.
Mark, you mentioned voter apathy, and certainly there is a tremendous amount of it. And one of the things that I had asked Miss Lennon was, you know, people don't really, I don't think, understand what the county board does, how it impacts their lives, and I think maybe that is part of the reason, at least a small part, with the county board, why they're not more actively involved there. What, you know, starting with your own little small district there, what will Mark Madison do to kind of engage the people in District 15 more?
Well, by participating on this show, I hope that will help. There's also a League of Women Voters Forum coming up. And like I said, this particular, through the media, this is one of the first opportunities, it is the first opportunity I've had to identify myself to the residents of the 15th District, outside of going door to door and knocking on doors for the nomination papers. You know, and that's a fun thing. It's nice to knock on those doors. I think it's curious too. I mean, no, it's an old belief that going door to door and knowing all your constituents, it's kind of a well-worn and believed system of identifying yourself and communicating. I think it's also kind of overused and somewhat of a falsehood. I mean, essentially all 38 districts in the county have about 4,500 people. Now, you're never going to know 4,500 people. Be available to them. I think we have my phone number here. I could have got out my email address too, I guess, for that matter. But I think it's most crucial that your voters can, your constituents can see that you're in there and see your voting record and find out what you're doing. The board is on television. Sometimes I feel unfortunately because I'm stuck in the front seat, but you can follow along, which is a wonderful thing about our local media, that availability is there to follow what is going on and see and hear and listen to what the vote is. And you're absolutely right. I wouldn't brag about understanding the county board going into it as far as the many facets that it does represent, the human services, the airport, Parkview, highway department. It's hard to grasp.
Yeah, I want to bring up about Parkview
Yes.
because you do serve on that committee.
Yes.
Now, obviously, it was a struggle to balance budgets for everyone this year: the city council, the school board,
Yes.
the state, the county
Us.
board. And some of the reasons that County Executive Jane Vandehei gave for having a difficult time balancing this year's budget was the cuts in shared revenues, of course, the increase in health insurance premiums, of course. The other reason she gave, though, was a decrease in intergovernmental transfer payments.
Right.
Now, and specifically for Parkview Health Center. When Mrs. Vandehei was on our show last summer, she had tried to explain these I can't even say it, much less understand it,
Yeah.
intergovernmental transfer payments that we get as a county from the state. She wasn't real clear, at least I didn't think she was. I didn't quite understand it. And then after the show was finished and the camera stopped rolling, Tom Widener, who's a county supervisor
Yes.
also, who was on that show with her,
And he's
told
chair
us,
of the Parkview Health
yes,
Committee.
he told us that she hadn't even given an accurate answer, and so maybe it's a good thing that it wasn't real clear.
Right.
Since you're on that committee, can you explain these
I wish
in
Tom was here to
layman's
answer
terms?
this.
Because obviously it impacted the budget
Right.
process in a huge way.
Right.
Is there a simple way to help us understand what those are?
Well, the simplest way, from my way of looking at it, and Tom could articulate it technically with all the appropriate terminology, but essentially the federal government is slowly pulling out some of the monies of support. Why? I don't know. You know, it's hard to say. It's some kind of bureaucratic decisions that we're going to move some money from this pocket to the other, and there's just going to be less. And it's happening across the whole state.
So then you have to find
it's a
ways to
trickle
make
down.
up that money
Exactly.
in other ways.
Exactly. And
The
that
feds
is
don't give it to the state doesn't give it to the county, and therefore the residents who need it don't get it.
Yeah, somebody thinks it's a good idea for whatever reasons. Now, there's some state incentives right now. Should it happen that the county would rebuild a new Parkville, there's some state incentives going on that would actually reward the facility for not just lowering its size per se as far as number of beds, but certain types of developmental disabilities people. This has kind of been a trend going on for quite a few years because I work with autistic children for 8 years myself in my current position before I switched to a different unit. But they've been making more of an effort to mainstream developmentally delayed people into community settings for quite some time. And there's a real small population, I think it's about 15 to 25 at Parkview now, that has been looked at and studied and could I shouldn't say easily, but at least it's conceivable, they could transition from the Parkview setting into more community settings, group homes, residential facilities right within the community.
Is that actually cost effective to move them from a state facility or county facility like Parkview that has basically round-the-clock care
Right.
to a CBRF, which is a community-based residential facility where taxpayers, it's still on the tax doles.
Right, right.
So cost comparatively, are they relatively the same
Right.
or is it?
I think they are, and plus you could conceivably, and this is one of the thoughts going on about rebuilding Parkview, should that be chosen as the most advantageous position, you could have a little bit smaller bed size in a new complex.
Does that see now that just seems to me to fly in the face of what's going on in healthcare and the aging community. The boomers are going to be retiring. The boomers are going to get older.
Right.
Why would you downsize a Parkview Health Center, which is there for a plethora of reasons, only to have one of the biggest gluts of your birth rates retiring within that period of time, needing to use a facility in short order?
Right, right. Well, I think what you have to remember is that all the other resources that will be needed for that increased aging population will expand as well. They're not going to all just show up at Parkview's though.
Well, that's true.
And additionally, Parkview serves a very special population. True, there are some people there that do have the money to, say, go to a private facility. There's a few of those paying customers, but the most of them are people without the resources to pick and choose various other places. And that's why I think our entire county board is committed to maintaining Parkview in some version, whatever the studies turn out to be the best, that we do have a commitment to the citizens of this county to provide those that do not, the have-nots, with a wonderful place to go when they're in that need.
So shifting the developmentally, and I apologize if I'm not using the right terminology,
Sure.
The developmentally challenged individuals from Parkview to a CBRF is just strictly kind of a deinstitutionalization move?
Right.
It's not really going to take anything off the tax rolls. They're not going to have their own homes or anything like that.
Exactly.
They're just going to be in CBRFs in neighborhoods that will still need medical care.
Yes.
It's just we don't want them in an institution.
Well, and maybe it would be more accurate to say of the population out there, they have some of the lower needs. They still need specialized care. Now, you said the CBRF. I understand what that is. I'm not saying you said that's where they're going to go. I'm not exactly sure where they go. Most likely it is. But yes, they have a lower list of needs, and they could be served more easily in the community, be it the CBRF or whatever, yes. Whereas the rest of the population is pretty specialized and has a higher need of medical treatment, behavioral treatment units, and things like that.
Okay. Let's talk about the airport. That's another hot button. Is the airport, in your view, a dead dog that's not going to hunt, or is it the phoenix rising?
Neither.
Really? Tell us what you think of the airport.
Well, I think
you
you just described extremes. I don't think it's either extreme. I'm not on the airport committee, so I'm probably not the most schooled individual on it. But what I know of it, I think it's in a decent place. I think we're all disappointed historically that we can't jump on a plane there and fly any place in the country. There's no passenger service. But I mean, if you want to, there's no sense crying over spilt milk. Whatever the decision went years ago that Appleton got the advance and we were left here, that's just the way that is. But I truly believe there's plenty of economic growth out there. We just had an excellent special orders session where our county extension explained approximately 500 jobs, if I remembered correctly, either directly at the airport or offshoot jobs to the airport, and $10 million. I'm kind of making that figure up a little bit, but there's quite a bit of decent income that is being generated. And they're taking a new direction, too, without the passenger service. They're looking at more businesses out there. They're trying to firm up and be more supportive of the businesses that are out there. So I think in the airport committee and the individuals on it that I've heard from and had discussions with, I think they're in a constructive and positive direction with it.
So this isn't just going to be some rich guys with private hangars out there at taxpayers' expense?
I think there might be some rich guys with private hangars out there. I hope they're not at taxpayers' expense. I hope they're paying their fair share, and actually I hope they do pay their fair share.
Okay. What kind of relationship do you feel as though the county board has with the county executive? Do you feel that you're moving in sync? Do you feel that there's a push-pull kind of thing going on? Are there areas that need improvement? You hear so much of the discord I'm just wondering what your impression of all that is.
Well, I think it's a healthy relationship. Not that it should be adversarial, but I think if we were all just completely on the same page, would be unhealthy too. So I think it's, you know, it's important for it to have an exchange of ideas, and the county executive needs to have a thoughtful board, at least questioning some of the directions, and I think that's why we're on the board.
We've only got a couple of minutes left before I'm going to ask you to tell voters why they should vote for you next month. But in a couple of minutes that we do have left, what issues, Mark, do you see facing the county board in the next 2 to 5 years?
Well, I do see, I think, this budgetary year with the potential cuts in services due to budget restraints. I think that conceivably could be huge. It also could be a lot smoother than doomsday, and I hope that's the case. But if there are cuts in services, I would like to be involved and hope to add as much restraint and user-friendly cuts as possible, and also make sure that nothing is cut that can't be reinstated if and when more monies are available. Parkview, I think, is huge. We have the next couple months the final study of which direction to go. Something has to be done out there. If we're going to maintain the building, an awful lot of money is going to have to go into it to make our residents safe. And if we're not going to do that, then we have to go new. Something has to be done to maintain or replace. And where that money can come from at this particular time, time to get out the magic dust, I guess. But we'll have to look as hard as we can at a way of doing that for the health and benefit of those people out there. What,
real quickly, the airport director. Of course, we lost Duncan Henderson
Yes.
a number of months ago. I'm not sure what her position was, but Ruth has kind of taken over as an interim director. Real quickly, what's the status on the search for a new director?
I couldn't tell you. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. of that.
Fair enough. In about 45 seconds that we have left, why don't you look right into the camera number 3 there ahead of you and tell voters why they should vote for you on Tuesday, April 6th.
I'd like the voters to vote for me and give me an opportunity to win a contested election and to finish serving on the board. I say finish in that I don't want to be a lifelong politician. I think probably I would be willing to move on to something else after this term. I hope, if I'd be fortunate enough to win this election, I hope Ms. Lennon would be around to run again in 2 years. Either way, I would support her. But I'd like the opportunity to deal with the budgetary cuts that face us and another 2 years of dealing with the Parkview issue as well.
Great. Well, thank you very much for being here. And of course, we've had your contact information up on the screen throughout the show. Please remember to go to the polls on Tuesday, April 6th and exercise your privilege to vote for the candidates of your choice. Mark, thanks again to you for being here.
Thank you,
It was
Cheryl.
a real pleasure to meet you. And thanks again to Kathleen Lennon for joining us in the first half hour. And thank you for joining us as well. Just a reminder to check out our website at eyeonoshkosh.com and let us know what you think about the shows we've aired, or tell us about shows you want to see in the future, and check things out in our community section. For Melanie Bloechl, I'm Cheryl Hentz. Take good care. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.
Bye.